Well, the history of the museums in Mobile is very interesting. There was a very eminent group of men in Mobile around the turn of the century. Peter Joseph Hamilton, the great historian, Archibald Hart, who was the what is the secretary is the title, I believe, of the YMCA, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Craighead, Irwin Craighead, a whole group of them. And they decided, they were the ones who staged the bicentennial celebration in Mobile in 1902 for the bicentennial of the founding of the city. And here we are almost coming to the tricentennial, isn't it? Amazing. So they also decided that Mobile ought to have a museum. Now, there had been a museum as back as 1835 when the Franklin Society of Mobile founded a museum along with a library, but the poor souls were burned out twice and they finally just gave up. So there was no museum. So in 1902, then, these gentlemen founded a museum in the YMCA. Now, that was the new YMCA, which is the derelict building still standing there. Conception and Government, still standing. Okay. But it was a very elegant building for its time, and the museum was established there. Time went on, changes took place. Hart left Mobile. Incidentally, he wound up as the General Secretary of the YMCA in Jerusalem.
Oh my goodness.
And one of the outstanding men in the field. But anyhow, the museum was neglected. Glass was broken on the cases, people stole things and so forth. So finally...
I thought that was a new phenomenon.
Oh no, that's as old as museums. I'm sure the first museum was broken into. But anyhow, what remained of it was moved first to the new Mobile Public Library. There was a very large room set aside there.
Is that the current library, the big one?
The big white library on the corner of Government in Washington.
Right.
And it was there until 1954. And by that time, the library was just bursting at the seams. They just didn't have, they needed that room so terribly. And so the library board just said, we're just going to have to ask that the museum be moved. So that was when the city commissioners appointed me chairman of a museum committee. It was just called the Museum Committee at that time, to take charge of those artifacts, and that's when the Historic Mobile Preservation Society stepped in, as they have in everything good in Mobile. And they let me haul them to the Kirkbride House, which was their headquarters at that time, and then when they moved to Oakley, they let me haul them to the servants' quarters out on the grounds of Oakley, until finally in 1962, the Mobile City Commission created the museum board and began to finance it, very skimpily to start with. And that's the time you're talking about when Jim Towie, an officer of what was then the Merchants National Bank, would keep the museum going from month to month. The city was very lax in turning over the money it had appropriated for the operation of the museum, and people, when they work and have families, got to be paid.
Sure.
And so I'd go to poor Jim Towie, and I'd say, the payroll's due and we don't have any money. How much? You'd say. So on my signature, he would give me the money to meet the payroll for the museum. And that was the way we operated for a good long time. Jim Towie is still very much alive, and I'm very grateful to him. I always will, because he kept the museum going.
We know him. I know him through his wife, Betty Ginzburg.
Oh, of course.
And Joe Jefferson.
Oh, yes.
And he is. He's a very fine gentleman.
Very fine. And a pillar. You talk about a pillar of the community. He is a pillar of the community.
Good to have had him as a friend.
And the museum would have gone under, literally, if he hadn't kept it afloat from month to month. And then finally, the city began to finance it adequately, and it took off. The first building that was acquired was the restored Phoenix Museum. That was restored excuse me, and was dedicated by Lady Bird Johnson, who was First Lady at that time. One of her First Ladies all, of course, have their pet things, and Lady Bird's was restoration and beautification. So that was right up her alley, so she came and presided at the dedication of the Phoenix Museum. And so we had quarters in the City Hall, beneath was the old Armory Hall on Church Street, and they were terribly crowded, and they finally, the city said, we've got to have this space. So we moved into the Phoenix, and so the museum was the Phoenix, and the Phoenix was the museum until actually first we acquired the Carlin House out on the campus of Murphy High School. I say acquired, the museum board never owned it. It was leased to the museum board for $1 a year. Now Palmer Pillins was the lawyer for the county, the school board. At that time, we were negotiating that. He said, yes, we'll do it that way. We'll lease it to you forever for $1 a year. It is $1 a year, and you pay it.
Don't go to Jim's house.
You pay that $1. So we always paid the $1 a year to the school board for the lease on the Carlin House. And then in 1972, the city acquired the Bernheim House, which was also the Bush House. It was associated with the Bush family of Mobile, and restored it as the city's bicentennial project. So the house, incidentally, 1972 was the house's 100th birthday.
Oh,
it was built in 1872, was acquired by the city in 1972, and was restored as the bicentennial project of the city. And so that constituted the city museums during my time. Of course, we are on the verge of a glorious new day now when the museums will acquire the city hall, and we'll have enough room. The museum of the city of Mobile in the Bernstein Bush House was terribly crowded from the very beginning. It's a beautiful house.
It's you know, for the space available, it's a wonderful museum. You can just spend hours in there. But I know what you're saying.
But there's too much still in storage.
Oh, yes.
That's what's so sad. But the house was an elegant house. It was beautifully restored. Money was provided for furnishing it, that is draperies and carpets and that sort of thing. So it was an elegant surrounding for the display of objects. And we amassed a fantastic collection. The people of Mobile opened their hearts, they opened their homes, they opened their safety deposit boxes.
Oh, that's good.
They gave. And they gave fine things. I think one of the most remarkable things about the Mobile City Museum is that it's a small museum, but it's full of fine things.
Fine, it really is.
First-rate things, absolutely.
We always take guests, rather, down there, and they are always impressed.
People are impressed by the things that are there. I mean, after all, several things are absolutely unique. Admiral Sam's sword, for instance, the sword that was presented to Admiral Sams by the officers of the Royal Navy after he threw his into the sea when he lost the Alabama. That is universally recognized as the finest Confederate presentation sword in existence. Now, the Admiral very wisely entailed it. He provided that it would never go out of the family. So we have it only on loan from the current owner.
Right.
But it's a safe place for it. Of course, the sword, I don't know what the sword would be worth, but we insured it for $100,000.
Well, it's not.
So it took a burden off the owner for us to display it and insure it. So that's been done for years. Now, the sword of General Bragg, which is on display, is the property of the museum, and it was given to the museum by Dr. Norman Clark of Mobile, who acquired it from General Bragg's niece. Miss Lily Gray, who lived here in Mobile. And it and many other similar things are the actual property of the museum, and they are first rate.
Right.